Okay. This is a 21 socket for a Nissan actually, but it's gripping on this upper portion. These are this is a key lock, and you can see where they use the impact on it at the shop to rotate my tires. They should have set it up to this top one, not the main one. But this 21 inch has a little bit of no play actually, it's just that the tip is smaller. Tightening this. Be sure to hold the tire. Come on, buddy. You can hold it with your foot. Same thing when you're putting it on. Okay, I'm going to take off the plug for the brake cap. So what you want to do first is break the brake bleeder valve loose a little bit after you take the plastic.
Look, just you can push it like this.
So what I'm using is a 7/16 wrench. Alright, righty tighty, lefty loosey. That other angle. Okay, the best angle that I found to be able to remove this, or to get a good grip on this and loosen bleeder valve, is from the passenger side, and you push towards the rear of the car. And it was tight, so you have to go slowly not to break it. Okay, this is visibly loose. The next is to remove this bolt, the bottom caliper bolt. So this is looking at it from inside the well. You have the top bolt and the bottom. So at this point and at this point in the back of the caliper, there are 2 bolts. There is also a nut here in the center of the top of the caliper, and the wrench size is a 15 millimeter open socket, a ratchet used for the bolts, 1/2 inch short socket. Okay, so this is a 15 millimeter combination wrench. This is a 1/2 inch short socket on a ratchet, and for this back bolt you're going to pull the ratchet down to loosen it. Get that thing back in there. Okay, this thing's a little tough.
You can't think. Wait a minute, you got it.
There we go. So you see how they both move together. So you want to hold the back. Okay, it's loose. Now I need to loosen the bottom one. Okay, so for the bottom bolt, you'll need a short extension so it does not hit the brake line and the bottom. So the 15 millimeter ratchet goes on the bottom. And you use a short extension on the rear bottom caliper to avoid hitting the brake line. So then you just commence to remove the caliper and remove the brake pads. Oh man, look how worn they are.
Do it right there.
So the brake caliper just pops out once you release the bolts. It has these little metal clips here on the bottom and on the top. Now I bought my brake and the second brake pad. You press the clamps to get it out. See how worn out it is?
You just slide it out completely.
So it snaps in between the clips. My brake pads, the replacement brake pads I purchased were $17.99. Came with both rear sides brake pads, not with these clips. These clips the brake pad clips cost about $3.99 in a pack, sold separately, than the brake pads. If you want to buy the brake pads with the clips, the lowest price I found was $39.99. So I bought the brake pads for $17.99. I did not buy the clips. My clips are still looking pretty good. And you will use the, make sure you wipe out your little clips
Brake dust.
from brake dust and rust. Now my rotors really need replacement, but it should not harm my new brake pads for a short period. I am gonna order new rotors, which is cheaper to order the set, and For the time being, I'm just replacing the brake pads. I will use brake grease, and all the connection points will be greased. The front, the back, the back of the old brake pad, the tops and around, and the cylinder inside the caliper. This is, you can get these little packets of brake grease, or you can get in a tube. This was $1.50 per pack, and you can buy a tube for $5.99. A look at my old brake pad versus the new one. This is the old one, and this is the new one on the right. So the old one's on the left, worn out. You can see it's less than 2 millimeters. Recommended to change it at 3 millimeters, no less. Mine's beyond. This is the new one. Just compare the thickness. So even with my bad rotors, it's a smart idea for safety. Now this is the one that's going to make contact with this solenoid here. Still have to depress that. But I'm going to put the grease on and set them to the side. Job is a disc brake caliper tool set that I borrowed with a $60 deposit at my O'Reilly's Auto Parts store. What you need is this, and I'm going to pick this one, the proper size for your brake. These tools here. On the cylinder, there's a groove here, and there's a second groove there. The circle part sits, the circle part has these little nipples on it and little holes. The nipples face the cylinder and they go into the slots. The tool itself has another end on it with little nipples that go into the metal plate that you place on the cylinder. But before we do that, so this metal plate goes on the caliper as such, and this is how you put it together onto the tool. Once you have it on the tool, this big bolt will turn to the left and it will tighten on the caliper with pressure. Then you simply turn the bottom handle to the right to press in the caliper. Okay, let's do it. So we're turning the bolt to the right to shorten the tip, and then we will turn the big bolt to the left to tighten it in its opening, so it's till it's tight so it stays in place. So in this case, we're going to try to tighten this up just to have it a little more snug before we start trying to depress the cylinder. And be sure to pay attention. There's a rubber here, boot. Make sure you don't turn too fast. Go slowly so you don't tear the boot, as it will spin. Okay.
I need you to hold on to this.
Okay. You may need somebody to help you hold on to this second part here. So here the knee's being used to press the caliper into the brake pad just to stabilize it, and I am holding onto the caliper at the same time. This one's depressing fairly easy, but the right side, passenger side, was very tough to depress.
And this is after we figured out the first time. Don't have leverage, it's pretty tight to do. Pretty difficult to do without leverage on this too.
I would not use any other tool to depress this, as it's very difficult and it requires the cylinder to spin inside. If you notice, the boot is turning along with the cylinder and the tool as we spin it.
Go ahead and pause it so I can. As you turn it.
So I did a pause so I could have both hands holding the caliper while it was turned by Angel. Now, this metal did loosen, and we did turn this to the left to tighten it. It'll push against each other. This will push this way to the cylinder, this will push back to the caliper, and then we could properly continue to turn. And now it's actually very loose, very easy to depress. So you can use a wrench here, adjustable wrench, tighten it, and now we've depressed it. So I am going to put some brake grease on here on the cylinder. This is what it looks like from the top view on the caliper. Then I'm going to go ahead and snap in the brake pads. They've already greased. They're both greased on both sides. So I'm going to snap in the brake pads. And they go in between those two metal clips. Oh, I didn't put grease on the caliper. Oop. Let me see it. Oh, my finger.
Where it can't, those three spikes, the three teeth, not the middle, just the three outside. That's where it makes contact. It makes contact right here also. Go ahead and press them in here. There's already some there, but go ahead and press them on there.
Oh, damn, it's so sticky. Okay, I'm going to put also right here where it contacts and on the bottom.
These clips line up back here. So as you're putting them, make sure they're kind of straight.
Okay, so now make sure you press it pretty tight. We're using the knee here, putting in the bolts, both the top and the bottom bolts for the caliper. While we press the calipers in, because it will have pressure because of the metal clips. So those are in. First tighten these bolts back up. Make sure 15mm combination wrench, put it on your caliper middle nut. Then get your ratchet, your 1/2" socket for the top bolt. So we're just snug tightening both bolts to make sure before we tighten. So you don't want to fully tighten the top or the bottom. You want to rotate from the top to the bottom to make sure it's an even tightness and it's not off. Pause it. Here you go. Say it again.
These metal clips in here are even. The top and the bottom is where it's supposed to be. And you can view here the bottom there and the top one are where they're supposed to be.
I'm going to go ahead and tighten them up. Again, using the 15mm open socket wrench for the middle bolt and the 12.5 socket and ratchet on the back bolt, and the same for the bottom bolt and the caliper. So here's the brake line being tightened back up. Put the brake line cap back on, the little plastic rubber. And we are set to replace the tire. Okay, give me the things. Lug nuts are tightened as snug as you can. When the jack is still in the air, you lower the vehicle, you fully tighten them, and there are torque specs. I normally just do it very tight, and then while you're driving, you need to check again and make sure, because sometimes the lug nuts can loosen. Do not use the impact all the way without having the proper torque, because you can break the lug nut. You press the brakes to release the cylinder and it'll push back this way, back out from the depression, and it will now be working again. You will feel when you're pressing on the brakes, you will feel tension, and that your brakes should be fine now.